Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I am Irie Black Books and this is my April and May horror book wrap up. I read 9 horror books these past 2 months and I will be discussing a little bit about what they were about and how I felt about them overall. My opinions are not meant to discourage anyone from reading these books, and if you have read any of them, feel free to let me know in the comments, but please don't leave any spoilers for those who have not read them yet. Most of these books are adult horror fiction and they contain content and trigger warnings, so just be aware before reading. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so the first book I finished was Dead Girls Walking by Sammy Ellis. This is the only YA book on this list, and I've said this numerous times before, but I'm really just not into the young adult genre anymore. I think I've outgrown it. I don't connect with it, and most of the time I'm not really sure who the book is being written for. I just can't with YA anymore. However, I will say that this one was very well written and really planned out. I really enjoyed this book. It didn't focus too much on teenage drama and emotions. It was more story driven than character driven. This one is about a teen who is posing as a camp counselor for an all-black, all-queer summer horror camp. And I say she's posing because she's actually there to find out where her serial unaliver father has buried her mother's body. She knows it's somewhere on the campgrounds, which are notorious for bodies showing up all the time. But as she's sleuthing around, she discovers more bodies and more horror to her already horrific backstory. And like I said, I really like this story. It's extremely gory, which is something you don't typically find in young adult books. This author does not hold back just because they are young. The only thing I would say I didn't like this book was it was about 7 chapters too long. I was ready for her to wrap it up. I'm going in an order that I finished these books. Otherwise, I would save this next one for last because it is actually the best book I've read all year. After reading this book, I kind of came to this revelation that I need to slow down on my reading. Well, not need to. I just want to slow down and really force myself to take my time and really ingest the book that I'm reading instead of just devouring it in one sitting and moving on immediately to the next book, because I totally could have with this book. I wasn't able to pick up another book after reading this book for like 2 weeks. It is Curdle Creek by Yvonne Battle Felton. This book was so good. It's so dark and foreboding. You just feel this never-ending sense of dread and anxiety as the book goes on. It's one of those books where you're just reading and everything is going fine, and then the author writes something crazy and just continues on with the regular story like nothing. You're like, wait, what? Then later on in the story, it comes back around and you're like, oh, okay. And it was something terrible every time. This book follows a woman in an all-black isolated town that has strict rules and traditions and very dire consequences if you fall out of line. And this woman, she already has too many strikes against her, and she is literally fighting for her life this whole book. I said in my TikTok video that this book has Jordan Peele movie vibes all over it, and I really mean that. I would love to see this on the big screen. It's dark, but it's kind of gothic, but it's also a folk horror. It can make a really good A24 movie too. Maybe an A24 and Jordan Peele collaboration. You heard it here first. I'm just saying. But hands down, this is my favorite book of the year so far. I stand on this book. Once I was able to start reading again, I reread Ring Shout. This time I listened to the audio, which was really, really good and only about 4 to 5 hours long, so I was able to finish it in one day. The narrator does an amazing job. I'm not going to say too much about this book because it was a reread. I read it years ago when it first came out and absolutely loved it. It's about a group of resistance fighters in the early 1900s who take on a demonic force that is empowering bigots all across the country. This is exactly the vibe of horror books that I like. If you like Sinners and you haven't read this book yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. This is what you need to read next. Next, I read 12 Hours by L. Marie Wood, and This is a very short book. It's only about 80 pages, but it took me forever to finish this book. It follows a cab driver who took a break in a dark alley one night and wakes up to realize that he can't remember anything and he can't move his body. So this follows his story of trying to figure out his situation. You're pretty much in this cabbie's head, in his mind, the whole book. And at times it feels like the story lost direction, but you kind of realize what's happening and you know where the story is going. The writing was very good, but this one wasn't my favorite. This next one, it was a pretty short read too. It's Of Airplanes, The Girl with the Cinnamon Roll. This is the second book by this author who I'm really coming to thoroughly enjoy. This is another short story, and I talked about her other one, Feed, in a previous video. This story is about 30 pages, but again, just like her other one, you get a story. And I just found out that this is book 1 of 5 in this Of Airplane series. I saw the covers for the other 4 and they are wild. I'm so excited to read those. This and the rest are on Kindle Unlimited, so now this story makes more sense to me because it definitely ends at a cliffhanger. But I thought the main character was just doomed to oblivion, so it makes a lot more sense now. Now there may be more of a story. I'll read you the synopsis. A man trained in sausage espionage has failed his final sausage mission. Hungover and miserable, he just wants to get home. That's it. That's the synopsis, and that's pretty much all I can say about the story without spoiling it. It's a very good read. Definitely check it out. And again, it's on Kindle Unlimited. The next book I read was Beauty in the Blood by Charlotte Carter, and I've never heard of this book, and it came out in February of this year, and I blame that on shitty marketing and publicity by these publishing companies because it should have at least been on my radar, and I'm really good at finding books. So anyway, I found this book and listened to the audio for the most part. It's about a generational demonic entity that possesses the women in its line and makes them do horrible things. It's told in about 2 to 3 points of view and expands across many decades. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. You got to really pay attention to the point of view of the story being told in that chapter. For the most part, I connected with it, but it really wasn't scary at all to me. It was kind of lacking in something. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm still not sure what it was, but it was just an okay read for me. Nana by Brandon Massey was another reread for me. I listened to it on Mother's Day, which you may have seen in my previous vlog. This book is so good. The narrator does an amazing job. It's definitely a book you do not want to put down. The husband was a real asshole though. The book follows a married couple who is dealing with the loss of the wife's foster mother, and at her funeral, the wife's real mother shows up and kind of just reinserts herself back into her daughter's life, much to the dismay of her husband, who discovers this woman is not who or what she seems to be. I know that's really vague, but if you've read this story, you know, and if you haven't, there's so much more to that. I bought this one to add to my Brandon Massey collection. I've never read a bad book by Brandon Massey. Definitely check the content and trigger warnings before reading this one, and definitely check it out. American Ghoul was a surprise. I've had my eye on this one for a while, but I was kind of put off by the slave and white savior narrative. But after finally reading this one, I found that's not really the case. This book was excellently crafted. I was immediately pulled in and engaged to the very end. There were so many plot twists and turns. I could not put this book down. This book is about a recently freed woman in the South who meets a white vampire and teams up with her to travel north. But she quickly finds out this vampire and her feeding urges are both out of control, and she's stuck dealing with that. I really like this book. It's really well written and it's very, very gory, very adult. Definitely check this one out. So like I said, I really want to slow down my reading and take my time in each world of the books that I'm reading. Mentally, I'm still in Curdle Creek though. Like, that book has just like set the bar for the rest of my reading for the rest of the year till I find a book that's better than Curdle Creek. But I do want to get into some summer themed horror books this summer, and I plan on starting with some of these. Okay, so first is We Don't Swim Here. I've been saving this one for summer because it just sounds like a summer book. Do believe this is YA, but I've only read one book by this author so far. It was an adult horror fiction, and I really enjoyed it. It was We Came to Welcome You. I think I talked about it before. That book was really good, so I'm curious to see what else this author has in store. Here's the synopsis. Bronwyn is only supposed to be in the rural Hillwoods for a year. Her grandmother is in hospice. Her father needs to get her affairs in order, and they're all meant to make some final memories together. Except Bronwyn is miserable, her grandmother is dying, and everyone is standoffish. All she hears are warnings about going into the water despite a gorgeous lake, and a pool at the abandoned rec center, and another in the high school basement. Anais tries her hardest to protect her cousin Bronwyn from the shadows of Hillwoods. She follows her own rituals to avoid any unnecessary attention, and if she can just get Bronwyn to stop asking questions, she can protect her too. She doesn't get that the lore is, well, the truth, history, pain. The living aren't the only ones who seek retribution when they're wronged. But when Bronwyn does more exploring than she should, they are both in for danger they couldn't expect. Bacchanal was one of my favorite books of 2021, and I just haven't seen these vibes in a horror book since. I've been waiting to reread this book for a while now, so I thought it would make a perfect summer horror book because of its carnival theme. I read it way too fast the first time, so I'm really going to take my time with it. It's about a girl who's abandoned by her family and joins this carnival because she has a special ability. And so she joins this carnival and starts to travel with them, but she starts to notice that in every city that they travel to, they leave dead bodies in its wake. This next one I have is Mystery James Digs Her Own Grave. This one is a middle grade level book, which I do enjoy reading. Middle grade horror just speaks to my inner child. I connect with this more than young adult for some reason. I've never read a bad middle grade horror book. They are usually really, really good. Even the middle grade fantasy books are really, really good too. I may try to save this one for late summer though because it has more fall vibes. I think the book takes place in like this sleepy small town and it involves a cemetery, so I don't know if that feels really fall to me, but here's the synopsis. 13-year-old Mystery is plagued by sleep paralysis and the smell of ghosts, but she's used to that. Even though her life might seem strange on the outside, she loves it. That is until a priceless heirloom goes missing and her family's funeral home is in danger of being shut down. To clear her tia Lucy's good name, Mystery, along with her ex-bestie Garrett, embarks on an adventure to figure out what really happened to the necklace. But to do so, she must contend with the angry patriarch of the town's wealthiest family, a sleep paralysis demon, a grave robber, and the ghastly half-vampire, half-ghost that's lurking in the old Ellis Town Cemetery. So I'm really excited to read this one. It actually doesn't come out till September, but I did receive a copy from Allie herself, so thank you. I also want to get into this next installment of, I don't even know the name of the series, but Nightmare King. It takes place in the same universe as Hide and Seeker by the same author. You may have heard me talk about that book before as well. One of my favorite horror books of all time, and that book is like really, really dark, even though it is middle grade. This one takes place in the same universe. I just haven't read it yet. Mentally, I'm still processing Hide and Seeker. If you know, you know. I'll read you the synopsis. So, Shane's life completely changed after his accident. One minute he was a normal kid playing a game of tag with his friends, and the next he's the boy who came back from the dead. Now, every time Shane falls asleep, he's pulled into a dark world where the evil Nightmare King reigns. The king is collecting children and keeping them as treasure. Shane's sister and best friend are in danger. Despite the threat of capture by the Nightmare King, Shane can't stay awake forever. He will have to take matters into his own hands. If he gives himself over to his nightmares, can he hold on to the good in himself long enough to bring down the king? And lastly, I guess I'll give this book a try. It's YA. It's YA. I did read a story by these two sisters in, I think it was the All These Sunken, no. It was the Black Girls Survives This One anthology. Their story was okay. It was entertaining. The cover is really nice. I think the premise of this book is pretty okay too, so I'll definitely give it a try. But again, it is YA, and you know, I just really don't connect with YA, but we'll see. Okay, here's the synopsis. Brielle Pettifor loves to cook, but with a chronically sick mother and bills to pay, becoming a chef isn't exactly a realistic career path. When Brielle's mom suddenly loses her job, Brielle steps in and uses her culinary skills to earn some extra money. The rich families who love her cooking praise her use of unique flavors and textures, which keeps everyone guessing what's in Brielle's dishes. The secret ingredient? Human flesh. Just like Brielle's clients, it will have you asking what's for dinner. That's gross. And that's it so far. If you have any Black Summer horror book recommendations, please let me know in the comments. And what book are you looking forward to reading? If you want to know more about any of these books, I do have them linked in the caption below. These are affiliate links, so I do earn a little bit, not even a lot, but I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.